In this video, I am going to walk you through how to use target training to teach your horse how to do a baited stretch. Now, baited stretches are something that I've had a bit of a bumpy relationship with in the past. From a physiotherapeutic perspective, I was trained early doors that baited stretches are the thing you do to encourage your horse to mobilize their spine. And from a research perspective, we know that doing baited stretches over a protracted period of time can improve your horse's multifidus muscle development and symmetry. But the thing that we don't consider is the behavioral implications of using baited stretches. Now, I found that a lot of horses find baited stretches to be quite frustrating because essentially we're using a lure, so usually a carrot, to bring the horse's head into a position and hold it for a sustained period of time. And while the horse is holding that position, they might be sort of frantically snapping at the carrot. And this sort of thing doesn't encourage that sort of mind body connection. It's more that they're sort of diving for the carrot rather than really thinking about where their body is in space. I also find in these situations, you can often kind of weaponize the horse's motivation to get the carrot to bulldoze through their body's capabilities. So, this might mean that you bring your horse's head round to different depths that they're not really capable of achieving, but they're going to use that motivation for the food to get there. And whilst some people might think that that is a good thing, they might think that their horse really wanting to go the extra mile to get the reward is a great way to get them to access their body. I personally feel it doesn't help them to develop healthy associations with moving their body. And it also doesn't help them to feel safe moving their body in a human situation. So for a long period of time, I actually stopped doing them. I felt that a lot of people were using them as a bit of a scapegoat for, not necessarily doing proper training and helping their horse to really access their spine in other areas of training. And I also found that people were doing their baited stretches, but were, still continuing to train their horse in really poor training practices that I wouldn't advocate for as a professional. But recently, I've been playing around with using a target stick to do some baited stretches. So I won't go through the whole routine. There are two baited stretches that I will do, again, using a target stick, not using food as a lure. And the first one I will do is encouraging the horse to extend their neck to touch the target. And then the second one that I will do is to encourage the horse to lower their head to the floor to place their muzzle between their front legs. And that is the stretch that I'm going to walk you through today. I've already mentioned this, but the reason why I love this is because it takes so much skill to set your horse up to stand really well, so to stand up square. And then it takes a lot of skill to encourage your horse to just move their head and neck and not the rest of their body. And then within that, the second that you encourage the horse to move their head and neck into a position that they find unsustainable or they can't access, they're going to move their feet. And this is so important because it gives you direct feedback about your horse's physical capabilities. And it gives you direct feedback about where your body can mobilize their spine and where they start to struggle. And this is something that you can really honor. Whereas if you're using a carrot as a lure, that horse might get a bit like muddly and it might get a bit messy, but your horse can sort of bulldoze through that restriction a bit. And it means that you're not likely to honor their physical capabilities as well as you could do. So, with that in mind, Our plan with this technique is to encourage the horse to place their muzzle between their front legs. And this encourages the spine through various ranges of motion. So, the first one being as they start to lower their head, as their head gets to the height of their withers, we start to traction on their supraspinous ligament via the nuchal ligament. And what this means is that we can orientate those early thoracic spinous processes forward. So we can start to open the thoracic spine up, which is something that I think a lot of horses could do with some help with. Then, as we start to encourage the horse's head a little lower, as we start to head towards their feet, you start to flex through their cervicothoracic joint. Now, a lot of horses spend a great deal of time extended through their cervicothoracic joint. So, encouraging a little bit more motion through that joint outside of a grazing situation is really important. And then, lastly, as we get to the very bottom of the movement towards the horse's front feet, you start to notice them rounding up through their mid-thoracic region. So we get a little bit of serratus ventralis thoracis engagement, which is supporting your horse's thoracic sling, as well as a bit of abdominal engagement, as well as the fact that we will also be targeting their spinal stabilizers, their multifidus muscles. So, a prerequisite with this is that your horse has to understand how to touch a target with their muzzle. So, that's something that you're going to want to spend a little time teaching your horse how to do. And I would advocate for not teaching them to move their feet. So, teaching them to stand still and then just move their head and neck to touch the target as well. So, we're not creating confusion when we start to move their head and neck around whilst wanting to keep their feet still. Then, once you've done this, you're going to teach your horse to stand square. So that can be with negative reinforcement, or if you are a purist and you already have this skill trained, you can also do this with positive reinforcement. You can also do this with mat work. And then you are going to start to work to bring the target towards the horse's front feet. And we're not going to go from zero to hero. We're not going to go from you touch the target with your head in a neutral position, and now we're going to go down towards your feet. We're going to start to stage it. So initially, we might just lower the horse's head a little bit to wither and pole at the same height. And then once your horse is comfortable with that, we're going to start to gradually move the target towards the horse's feet. Now, if they are struggling to make the mobilization through their body, they're going to move their feet to touch the target, or they're going to contort their body in some way, shape, or form. And then, from a human perspective, this gives you so much controllability because you can see where your horse is restricted and you can just keep the target at that point or just slightly before that point until they start to find that a little bit easier. And then you can shape the movement from there. So then you can shape back towards your horse's feet. With this in mind, I wouldn't be doing this in one session. So we're not going to go from zero to hero in one session. This might be something that you phase in over the course of a few weeks. And with that in mind, you're going to want to keep your repetitions fairly short. So you might want to do maybe 3 to 4 repetitions in a session. And you don't even have to do it every day, but you are going to want to build this over a protracted period of time.